as we mentioned before the end of the last inning, that Royals Hall of Famer Cookie Rojas is here. Good to see you.
Thank you, Rex, and Ryan. You know, it's great to be here back in Kansas City and seeing all the changes that have done being here and the way the ball club has been playing. It's great to see it.
When was the last time you were here?
I think 2 years ago.
With
remember
the Marlins?
Yes. No, it was because of the All-Star. I think it was 2 years ago. Is that correct?
For the All-Star game?
Yeah.
How about if I tell you that that was 4 years ago already?
Yeah, my God.
Time flies.
It sure does.
I've heard, going back to my early years with the Royals, Denny Matthews and Fred White, anytime the Royals were down big, maybe not this big, would tell the story about a game in Milwaukee. The Brewers had a huge lead, and I believe there was a day game the next day, and Whitey Herzog started taking guys out and sent them back to the hotel. And
well, we had a day game the next day, and he was trying to give some rest to some of the guys that were playing every single day. And all of a sudden, we started getting close, and all of a sudden, you know, he was starting to worry. Really, he had enough guys in the dugout to keep the game going. We tied the game and all that, and I don't think he'll ever do that again the rest of his career.
And this was before, you know, all the games were televised, and so the regulars were hanging out in the lobby of the hotel, and the bus shows up, and the regulars couldn't believe it when the guy said, "We came back and we won that game."
Yeah,
no, you didn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's like here right now. You know, you got a 12-1 game going on right now, and but then if you can score a little bit, 4 or 5 runs, you know, you're still back in the ball game. Because this ball club can do it in a hurry, but you know, I think it got out of the hand of Balkas in the first inning.
Something I've heard about you over the years, Cookie, from Denny and Fred and Paul Splittorff and others, as Correa hits one into shallow right, and Paulo Orlando with a sliding attempt, but the ball is off of his glove, and Correa is on with 1 out. But when that team in the early 70s going into the mid 70s really needed a leader, they needed some guys that had played for a while, and you had 8 years of National League experience, that aside from everything that you did on the field, that you were one of the glue guys in the clubhouse for a team that became a model organization in the mid 70s.
Well, if you remember, this was an expansion ball club that just got the franchise, and they wanted to have an experienced ball player to come in and help all the young players that they had. You know, one thing that they did very well is the fact that when they drafted a lot of young players. And I believe that was better than just drafting older players that have been around for a long period of time. So when they traded for me from the Cardinals in 1970, I talked to Preston Gomez, and you remember him.
Yeah.
You know, for many years he was one of my tutors all around of baseball. I called him and I said, "What about Kansas City? I mean, I've been here now with the Cardinals and the Phillies, good ball clubs." And I says, "Hey, this is a young club with a lot of talent, and Cedric Tallis wants to have a player like you that can really take this ball club and help him a little bit."
Cookie, what was it like working for Ewan Kaufman?
Well, Ewan was a very special man. You know, question about it, what he's done for the city and everything else. And he had the academy in Florida, which I thought it was a great idea. He sent me down there when I broke my ankle, you know, to get it fixed. And at the same time, he says, "Hey, I want you to go over and look at the academy. Let me know what you see." Well, we did. We went over there, spent 2 weeks, and came back, and I said, "Listen, I think you have the greatest idea in baseball in a long period of time. But there's one thing little that is wrong." And he said, "What is that?" I said, "We try to convert players from other sports into baseball. And that is very hard to do. But if you give your scouting an opportunity to go out and see the best players, sign him, and they see a player here and there that has the ability, but it'll take him a little longer to develop, sign him and send him to the academy." He says I was crazy. So that was it.
Yeah, but Cookie, you were looking for athletes back then.
That's right.
Athletes make the game of baseball go.
No question. There's no question about it. But it's hard to come back right now to convert, let's say, a guy that is a tennis player into baseball, or a guy playing golf into baseball. It's not the same thing. You had to have people that are playing the game that they are small and little league and develop into the game itself. And if you have the ability to be professional player, then you start learning how to get up to the big leagues. It's not easy, but if you have the academy that can really help those kids develop, it'll be a lot easier with guys that play the game against guys that from other sports.
It's kind of like the Urban Youth Academy that the Royals have put together this year, right here in the heart of Kansas City.
And how did it go?
Oh, it's going great.
And that's exactly right. That's the same thing we're talking about. That's what happens. I believe more than anything else right now, if you go ahead and develop in the minor leagues and maintain good young players, giving them the opportunity to learn the game right instead of rushing some of the kids up to the big leagues, I think that you have great success. If you go back to the old organization, the Dodgers, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Cincinnati Reds, the New York Yankees, all of those clubs went down to the minor leagues and keep on developing these players, giving them the opportunity to really become a major league player in the big leagues. But if we keep rushing those kids, sometimes we miss them, and sometimes we lose them because they lose confidence in themselves.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, for fans who are coming out tomorrow, what's your role going to be with Viva Los Reales tomorrow?
I'm going to have the opportunity to be with them in KYYS radio, 1250 dial. We talk a little bit about baseball in Spanish.
Okay.
Expand the sport around the city of Kansas, the state, and Missouri, every place that we have people that know the game well, that they haven't been able to come down to see it personally. But if they can go ahead and turn the knob on that radio and seeing what is happening here and follow the Kansas City Royals, who is a great ball club, great contending organization that have done a great job here the last few years, and I think it's great. And if you like to then salsa, tomorrow you have the opportunity to taste all the salsa that we can make here in all the restaurants that have a Spanish food.
Rex and I were confused for a couple of years. We thought the salsa competition was a dance competition. But, as Gomez.
So you were practicing before. Huh?
Yeah. Well, speaking of Cookie Rojas stories over the years, and this kind of ties into salsa, maybe it's a stretch, but when you guys won the division in 1976, was it you and Freddie Patek who went for a little dip out in the fountains?
Sure. When I came over in 1970 and we came finally to this stadium here, because before we were in Municipal Stadium, I said, if we win the division or win the whole thing here, I'm going to jump in that fountain in center field. So the last day of the season, there was 30,000 people here in the stadium. And the game was over. People didn't left, just stay there sitting. And they put the cameras on us in the dugout, and I started taking my shoes off, and of course the people started going crazy. So I'm going over to walk down the line in left field, and Freddie says, I'm going with you. He says, come on, let's go. We walk all the way to the foul pole, got on top of the fence, and walk all the way around to the middle of that center field fence. We turn around, say hello to the fans in here, and we jumped in. And this place went bananas. And I said, well, if I said it and promises, I did it. That's what it's all about.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, was the fountains lit? They probably didn't have lighting in them like they do now.
Well, we talked to George Stoma, one of the best groundkeepers there is in the world. And we told him that we were going to do that. So he had to go over and disconnect all of the electricity and the water and all that.
You bet he did.
Otherwise, you would have had a soggy cookie.
Cuthbert over to first, and that gets Danny Worth to end the inning. Well, great to see you, Cookie. It's always great to see Victor when we play the Angels, and looking forward to you participating tomorrow.
Cookie.
You bet.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, Royals Hall of Famer Cookie Rojas, bottom of the third, 12-1 Houston.